Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Joe Woolley. I'm the CEO of the Nashville LGBT Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber advocates, educates, and connects on behalf of our individual and small business, corporate, and nonprofit members who share the values of promoting equity and diversity in business and society. We have organized an open letter of Tennessee businesses opposed to discrimination for the last 4 years, and we are here today to share with you the signers of the current letter and some of the comments of those that have signed. We're placing in the comment section of the video platform that you're joining us with the list of signers, a link to the open letter, the press release, and then the names of the speakers today with their spelling and their organization. If you're joining us as a reporter, please put your questions into the chat of the platform that you're joining us on, and we will answer those in the question and answer section at the end of this. Business is making it clear once again that discrimination has no place in Tennessee. After a year like no other, when COVID-19 has ravaged the state and our economy is still in dangerous territory, we are shocked that some state legislators are advancing measures that would divide and discriminate. The business community is louder than ever before, urging our state leadership to focus on rebuilding our economy and to move beyond the politics of division. Only a forward-looking Tennessee will continue to attract the world's best talent, the vibrant tourism and entertainment industries that help make this state so special, and that help sustain big and small communities alike. Many legislators in the past couple of weeks have made statements that they just haven't heard from the business community on this, that it's just not a case that they're hearing about. That simply is not the case. So here we are again, coming to you with a record number of businesses engaged in voicing their opposition to discrimination in the form of this letter. They are speaking out in this letter in a public way, but they are also reaching out privately and speaking with legislators. And they have been doing that for months. I've never seen the engagement at this level like they have in the past 3 years. So for the 4th year in a row, here we are again. We operate here at the Chamber as a de facto statewide chamber, with signers and businesses engaging from across the state. From Memphis to Bristol, Clarksville to Chattanooga, Tennessee businesses are consistently speaking out against discrimination. Discriminatory legislation that harms the state's reputation on inclusion and diversity as it relates to our ability to attract, nurture, and retain talent and tourism business. These businesses strongly embrace diversity and inclusion because they want everyone who works for them or does business with them and their families to feel welcome and safe as their authentic selves, not just at work, but in their daily lives as they participate in their communities. Fairness, equal treatment, and opportunity are central to their values because they care about the employees and the customers they serve. These values also directly affect their bottom lines. Inclusive business practices and communities lead to more productive and engaged employees, better competitiveness for top talent, and more creativity, increased customer satisfaction, and improved competitiveness in tourism. That's just not me telling you this. Every notable economist will tell you this on a bipartisan basis. Diversity and inclusion and acceptance is the future of business. Back to the letter. And Tennessee is a great place to do business. As we work to recover from the economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, we still have one of the nation's lowest unemployment rates, and companies in many sectors are expanding and hiring. Business interest in relocating to the state remains high. Not a week has gone by where I have not talked with a company that is considering coming to Tennessee, but they are reaching out to ask questions on how inclusive of a place it is and if their LGBT employees or employees' family members that are LGBT will feel safe and welcome. Many of the signers of this letter, that is a huge concern for them. Tennesseans continue to build thriving sports, tourist, and convention business across the state. We'll be hearing in more detail coming up about the effects on the tourism and convention industry. Our economic Our economy is proof that our business-friendly legislative agenda is the right approach and one that benefits all of the state's citizens. We ask that lawmakers not pursue legislation that would target or exclude LGBT people of all ages. Regardless of the intention of such legislation, its impact will be to harm LGBT people, including and especially kids, and that harm in turn will hurt our business competitiveness. We need our visitors and workers and their families, including any transgender members of their families, to feel welcome and safe. Any movement of these exclusionary bills is particularly troubling while we are dealing with so many other pressing workforce and economic concerns amidst the COVID-19 crisis. We have speakers here today that have signed the open letter that I've just read to you, and they'd like to make additional comments. We're going to start with John Esposito, Chairman and CEO of Warner Music Nashville. Warner Music Group has consistently stood against discrimination and knows that a welcoming and inclusive Tennessee is critical to a good workforce. John, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Happy to be here. And I'd like to read you a short but direct quote from the Warner Music Group. We're proud of our long-standing presence in Tennessee. The continued success and growth of our business here depends on our ability to recruit and retain a best-in-class, diverse workforce. We often receive questions about whether Tennessee is welcoming and inclusive as a place to live for the LGBT community. We would like to answer yes, but these bills send a clear message that LGBT artists, songwriters, and employees are not welcome.
Thank you very much, John. Again, much appreciated. As the letter stated, Tennesseans continue to build thriving sports, tourist, and convention business across the state. No sector of the economy will feel the effects of an economic boycott that could come in response to this potential legislation than the hospitality industry. To join us to talk more about the effects that the hospitality and tourism industry might face and has faced in the past with other legislation being passed is Andrea Arnold, Senior Vice President of Public Affairs at the Nashville Convention and Visitors Corporation. Andrea, thank you so much for joining us today. It's good to see you. And I know this has been getting a lot of press as we've talked about the potential impacts of this legislation. So I'm very grateful you can join and talk more about this.
Well, thank you, Joe, for the opportunity. This is a very important topic. As you know, the hospitality industry, arguably the largest industry in the state, has been just devastated economically due to COVID, far more deeply than most other business segments. In Nashville alone, we are experiencing a loss of over $4.5 billion in direct visitor spending so far. We can see light at the end of the tunnel, but we just cannot afford anything else that will damage our attempt at recovery. Discriminatory legislation is a significant barrier to that recovery. We know from our past experience that meetings and events will avoid states when these types of bills pass. Even more concerning, we know national and international sporting organizations like FIFA, the NBA, NFL, the NCAA have expressed concern and in some instances even canceled events scheduled for states that have passed this type of legislation. As these discriminatory bills advance, we will have to work even harder to make visitors and planners know that Nashville is a welcoming city and that we want their business. It's at a time when we're already working so far from behind. It's just a barrier that seems easy to avoid. It's frustrating to see these bills filed when we have worked so hard to create a pro-business environment, especially when it seems that many of these bills solve no visible problem. They only hurt our state's and city's reputation as a great place to do business. And we take great pride in that reputation, that Tennessee has one of the most business-friendly climates in the country. We're eager to get this industry back on its feet and bring back those much-needed jobs and tax revenue to our state. The Nashville Convention and Visitors Corp is a founding member of Tennessee Thrives, a statewide business coalition that believes our state is stronger when we support an open and welcoming environment. We join over 450 other businesses, organizations, and corporations of all sizes and in all corners of the states in echoing that message. We must be mindful of the unintended consequences of discriminatory bills so that we can get our businesses back on track and remind everyone that Tennessee is a great place to do business.
Thank you, Andrea. Excellent points. Absolutely spot on the effects that we could see. If you are joining us as a reporter, please type your questions into the comments section and we'll answer those coming up shortly. You can type those into the comment section of whatever platform you're watching us on. We do see some coming in, and I am getting some on email. So thank you for that, but please do submit your questions. I'd like to just highlight the letter quickly. You can find this on our website. It's linked to in the chat. I've read most of it, but I do want to go down the list of signers. We have 25 corporate signers this year. We're very grateful for all of them. Alliance Bernstein, who really opened the door to this process 3 years ago when they moved to town and started engaging on this letter. Amazon, who has been leading out front this year. Amazon would be happy for you to contact them, and they will issue further comments as they have been on this issue, but we're very appreciative to Amazon. I want to point out as well Dell Technologies, who has taken strong stances in the past, who has also signed a national letter that you can find in the press release that we've put out. Our partners at Freedom for All Americans and the HRC, Human Rights Campaign, have put out a national letter of businesses. We will pull that up. This is a national letter that was just released last week. It will be coming with a re-release here in Tennessee of over 55 corporations that have signed on opposing discrimination. We have, again, today are releasing the Tennessee businesses opposed to discrimination. We focused on our Tennessee businesses here to make sure that the legislators see that these are Tennessee businesses speaking out. Many other corporate members from all over the state. And then I'd like to point out that we have so many small business signers. We are over 112 that have engaged on this topic. Now, they have signed the letter, but they've also reached out directly with legislators to talk to them about the impacts of this. We have additional quotes from our corporate members that have signed. I'd like to highlight Mars Pet Care. At Mars, we believe our business and our community are at their best when we embrace and celebrate all people. We firmly believe that everyone is equal and that every person deserves to be treated with respect, dignity, and fairness. We value our presence across the state of Tennessee and continue to invest here as it has been a great place to do business. Discrimination has no place in our business or our laws. We strongly oppose any bill that would negatively impact our entire community and the thriving business environment that we currently have. We respectfully urge the legislature to reject and Governor Lee to veto any such bills. We've already heard from Warner Music Group, the Nashville Soccer Club, and Diversity Builder have also spoken out. To address something that I often hear when we talk about this is, well, it's just Nashville businesses. It is not Nashville businesses. We see engagement across the state around this topic. We have broken down our corporate business signers. The business signers in West Tennessee and East Tennessee can be found. This is a statewide issue, and we're appreciative of all of the signers across the state. So I want to close in kind of setting the stage for what we're expecting this week. We really did this today to put business on record opposing discriminatory legislation, because we have been facing it throughout this session, and we're about to face it in a whole other level this week in the Tennessee legislature. This week, the anti-trans student athlete bill, Senate Bill 228, which has been passed by the Senate, we expect to be scheduled to be heard on the House floor. It will then, if it passes the House floor, move to Governor Lee, and he has expressed in statements that he would sign it. He has backed this legislation. This legislation is in search of a problem. There is not one case of a transgender athlete wanting to compete in the gender they identify as. This is a national push, with this legislation showing up in no less than 25 other states this year. It has become, unfortunately, a political issue, and again, is a bill in search of a problem. This week, the trans youth healthcare ban is going to be heard for the first time in the Senate Judiciary, or it's scheduled for the House Criminal Justice Subcommittee on Wednesday. This bill stands out nationally in the criminal penalties it places on doctors and parents if they help trans youth. Tennessee could become the first state to pass a bill like this. This has not been passed in other states before. This bill is extreme and could bring devastating economic repercussions to the state, not to mention the impact that it would have on thousands of trans youth. And then, unfortunately, we have the bathroom bill back, and not just one bathroom bill that we have consistently said year after year was not needed and we have not passed, but we have two bathroom bills back this year. The first is a bathroom signage bill. This is Senate Bill 1224. You can find information on our website about all of these bills. This bill, what we've referred to as the bathroom signage bill, should have all businesses very worried. This bill is yet another attempt to institute a statewide anti-trans bathroom ban. This version requires you to post a sign at your entrance and on your bathrooms if you have inclusive bathroom usage policies, and allows people to use the bathroom of the gender they identify as. Private business should be very concerned with the cost of this bill, the intrusive nature of this bill, the backlash to companies that have policies that are inclusive, and the blatant discrimination and issues it would cause to businesses, let alone yet again to the LGBT community. And then there's a bathroom bill, 2.0 we're calling it. This is another attempt on the bathroom and locker room bill with regard to public schools. If you are not provided a private bathroom to use, you can sue the school. We think that is the message of this bill. Again, it's very confusing, but clearly discriminatory. So a number of bills up this week. There are still additional bills that we still have not heard from, but we are really trying to get the message out of the number of bills, of the amount of discrimination, and specifically then, after that, the negative harm that it brings to the state. Just talking about these bills harms Tennessee's image and reputation. Passage of these bills brings on direct economic consequences. Turning to questions, we have Adam Shitko from the Nashville Business Journal. Adam writes, thinking about the economic impact in Nashville, what amount of reaction or fallout did you see from the adoption legislation last year? And how does that compare with what you think could happen if the legislation mentioned today is enacted? That's a wonderful question. We have talked about it in length to the Senate Education Committee and to others, trying to make sure that they know this. Specifically to the adoption bill, which was an anti-LGBT bill that was passed, the very first bill that the Tennessee legislature passed in 2020, which banned private adoption and allowed private adoption companies to ban adopting to LGBT parents. That happened in January, and the fallout could not be fully tracked because of the COVID shutdown, which happened shortly after that. So the full effects are not tracked. I am personally aware of 14 conventions that canceled after the passage of that one bill. I wrote 7 letters to groups asking them to keep their reservations and to come to Tennessee. We work to stop these bills from passing on the front end, but when they do unfortunately pass, we have to switch to handling those and the fallout from that, because that affects our members and our businesses. The COVID-19 shutdown canceled all conventions last year, and the full extent of the bill is not fully felt, but I believe Andrea can speak to the numbers that we did see from the counseling law, which was passed in 2016. Andrea, can I bring you in to speak on those numbers?
Sure. Am I?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. We get calls from clients from around the country anytime these bills are introduced. Clients pay attention. They have a choice in picking a destination for their meeting and convention, and they're looking several years out, and they're looking at elements of a city that will help them increase their attendance. Laws like this on the books absolutely are something that planners are looking at as they are picking destinations. We did see direct loss after the counseling bill. Several, I'll get the specific numbers to you after this call. We saw, as Joe said, after the adoption bill, we had 14 pieces of business canceled. Now, mind you, there were far more that were concerned. We were able to save some of those pieces of business as well. But we get calls whenever these bills are introduced. And I will tell you, as we look to the future, every city in the country that is a convention destination, after the year that we've had, is going to be very aggressive to rebuild back their business. And so they're going to be, it's a buyer's market, if you will, for conventions. So we need to be as aggressive as possible and bringing back business to Nashville and making sure that the elements of our city that attract so many visitors here every year, so many conventions, are out there without any barriers. And this seems to be an artificial barrier that we just cannot afford at this time.
Andrea, I have some data that you have been able to provide right here in front of me. The counseling law in 2016, the impact of groups that were definite and canceled due to the counseling bill, 3 bookings, almost 7,000 room nights, 3.4 million in direct visitor spending. Impact of groups that were in lead status but chose a different destination due to the counseling bill. That was 11 bookings, 116,000 room nights, and 66.4 million in direct visitor spending. Impact of groups that won't even that we can't track because we don't see the leads due to the counseling bill, and other discriminatory legislation in Tennessee is unknown. Any additional information on that? So what you're saying there is you have conventions that are in lead status right now that are looking to the future, that if discriminatory legislation were to pass, could pull out, and you would never even be able to track that.
Well, that's exactly right. And the numbers, I'm glad you brought that data point, because the numbers, we say a number of a convention, but that convention brings thousands of people and millions of direct visitor spending. So one convention has a significant impact. And when we talk about conventions, we're talking about citywide conventions that bring enough people to fill the city for occupancy. So we have, you're right, leads are those that have told us that they're planning to come and they're evaluating us against other markets. And then there are several that are still in the decision phase that never even call us because they know we have these bills on the book. So that's the part that's a little hard to calculate, that we know we'll be aggressive and reach out to a client, reach out to a business or organization that would want to meet here. And we'll say, we are a desirable destination. We want you here. We want your business. And then we'll hear, we've never considered you because of this issue. So we know that that's out there. It's something we battle quite often.
Nashville's at the top of the convention and tourist list on where to go. Everyone else that competes for tourism will be targeting Nashville, and passage of this bill will give them strong arguments on why they should bring their conventions to their location versus this one. It gives them a tool in this this competition to attract conventions. Isn't that right?
That's exactly right. Like I was saying earlier, we're all, COVID has hit the convention and tourism market pretty evenly across the country. So as we come out of this, you already have a deficit with states and different states being able to offer different levels of meeting parameters around it. And so you already have that space that you're dealing with, making sure that if you book a piece of business in the future, you will be able to meet their needs in the way that they want and promise that in the future when so much has been unknown and things are reopening. But every city that is a convention destination, like I said, is going to be very aggressive, and they're going to use, as they should, they're selling organizations, and they're going to use everything that they have to book the piece of business for their community. Nashville is a very desirable destination. We've used research solidly throughout all of our recovery for our recovery plan, and we know that the desire to come here is high. We just have to get them back in, and we certainly just can't afford anything like this that is just a barrier we can't fight.
Another statistic that I just found, incredible, but something that we should keep in mind with this is conventions are 40% of the Nashville tourism economy. 1/3 of all tourism business is produced out of Nashville. That's statewide, correct?
1/3, yes, 1/3 of all direct visitor spending comes out of Davidson County. That's correct.
But just as a reminder there, visitors still travel outside of Nashville to many Tennessee locations when they come to Nashville for their convention. Nashville is not the only place that is affected. And to remind everybody, Nashville is a part of Tennessee. So this really does have statewide impacts when these conventions go somewhere else. One of the things that I get asked the most, and I see a comment addressing or asking about this, is the big events that we have. The Nashville Area Convention and Visitors Corporation does an outstanding job on all of the events you host here. There hasn't been an event like the NFL draft. It was, even the NFL said, one of the, if not the best draft ever. So we have the draft, we have, all of these visitors coming. You all know how to put on a show. I know we're currently talking about, we're bidding for because we're involved with the Convention and Visitors Corp, bidding for the World Cup in 2026. There's hopes of another draft or possibly a Super Bowl in the future. And then the NCAA tournaments that we all love to go and watch, basketball tournaments. All three of those organizations have issued statements that say it is very unlikely that they would go to a location that had discriminatory legislation like we are talking about. Is there anything you'd like to speak to on that additional?
Sure. I think I'd like to hit on your first point you made, which is very, very true, that it's just like put yourself in the shoes of a visitor. When you go and visit, you don't necessarily know the city or county line. So we have visitors from Nashville who talk to us about how they loved their trip to Nashville so much and how they enjoyed walking down Main Street in Franklin, and how they loved their visit to Nashville so much when they did their tour of Jack Daniels, and how they loved their visit to Nashville when they took a day trip up to the Smoky Mountains. So they're coming to Nashville, but they are absolutely taking advantage of the central part of the state to go and discover all elements of our state. And we are very lucky to have a lot of great product in this state. And conventions are 40, you're right, 40%, a huge chunk of our economy here with tourism. Events absolutely are part of our strategic plan to grow that business. We are a festival city. We have done it right so many times, and over the last decade that we've served as a model. Everything from the Preds parties up to the NFL draft, as you said, which drew 200,000 people a day for 3 days from all over the country coming in to enjoy our city. And these big events, they plan several years out, and we have seen a lot of feedback as we talk to them about several years in the future and the potential of bringing big events here that have massive economic impact and direct visitor spend potential. And this is high up on their list of concerns. You mentioned FIFA. FIFA for the World Cup, Nashville is in the bidding right now to host the World Cup game in 2026. That's how early in advance these guys work. And every city that is vying for it has been asked to submit human rights records. What are you doing to make what is your record for human rights, and what are you going to do to use an event like this to improve your record of human rights in your city? So that's 5 years out, they're asking those questions. It's very high up on their list of importance to choose destinations that have open and welcoming environments.
Yes. Thank you very much, Andrea. There is a question regarding the potential taxpayer cost should this bill be passed and signed into law, given there will more than likely be lawsuits. That is correct. The trans athlete bill that was passed exactly like ours, that was passed in Idaho last year, is currently held up in the courts and is being argued there. All of these, the ACLU has said they will sue and take the state of Tennessee to court. So all of those will have an economic impact there with the cost of those. There's also national legislation and national executive orders, and a Supreme Court ruling from last year with the Bostock case, where the Supreme Court ruled that sexual orientation and gender identity were protected under Title VII. The Trump administration at that time only said they would enforce that under workforce employment. The Biden administration has said that they will take that to education, healthcare, and other areas that Title VII and Title IX have an impact on. So we know that these will be tried in the courts, and already early on with the one that we can point to with the Idaho athlete bill has already been overruled. So again, the reasoning for that athlete bill to go forward on this is, to us, very questionable, especially when the economic and business harm that can come from passage of it is evident and clear on the potential impacts there. I will also then refer you to and connect you to the ACLU on the direct numbers. Today we're speaking to the business impact, and I don't want to give any incorrect information regarding the other information in that case. So again, to wrap up, we wanted to make it clear again that Tennessee businesses do and are opposed to discriminatory legislation. They stand against this discriminatory legislation. It is a business, it affects their business, it affects their bottom line. They are concerned for business reasons, but they are also speaking out because this affects their values as a company. We haven't talked a lot about economic community development, which was because it has slowed down a little due to the COVID-19 pandemic. In years past, we have had companies that were looking to move to Nashville, very engaged in this because they were concerned about coming to a place that had legislation like that. I know of some that are looking at Nashville that are concerned and are speaking out. And you have ones that have just come here that, again, are on the letter and very concerned about this, but it affects that as well. We can point to all of this with the North Carolina bathroom bill in 2016 when they passed that. They $3.76 billion is the conservative estimate of what that state lost. That was tracked to the convention and visitor tourism losses that we've talked about, but then also to economic development dollars of jobs coming there. Companies pulling out, not taking their businesses there, relocating them there. We all in the business community and as Tennesseans love to see the businesses come here and open up shop. Legislators love to talk about businesses coming from California specifically, and they're coming in mass from there. But they don't leave their values at the state line. Those values are the company's values. They believe in protecting and having their employees feel welcome and accepted. they bring those values here, and they're very concerned because this legislation goes directly against that. And we want to keep them coming here. Again, this is a business case against discrimination. So today we have been very clear that we are putting legislators on notice. Businesses are opposed to discrimination. The letter speaks for itself on why, and businesses are engaging not just in this letter, but directly with legislators and behind the scenes as well. We are very proud of all the work that's been done by the business community about this. The Nashville LGBT Chamber of Commerce will continue to advocate and push back against discriminatory legislation. We will be sending a copy of this letter to all legislators and the governor later today. We will use this at all of the hearings upcoming in the bills that we have talked about and told you that are coming, and the additional ones that will be in the weeks ahead. And we're asking everybody to pay attention, stay engaged, and take action as you can. We are still taking signers, and we will update the letter accordingly when we get more signers. If you didn't make this round, please sign on, and we'll make sure that your business is included on the letter every time we use it up at the state capitol. Reporters can reach out to me with any further information or data that you've heard today, and I can put you in contact with other businesses that are willing to speak on record with the press and give additional statements. With that, we will wrap today's press conference. Thank you all so much for joining us, and let's continue to work to keep Tennessee an open, inclusive, and great place to do business. Thank you.